Welcome to Queerly Speaking. I'm your host, Nat Jones, and together my wife and I will navigate the complex intersections of faith, identity, love, and resilience. In each episode, we'll share stories of heartbreak, healing, and hope from individuals who were told they didn't belong in the very spaces that shaped us. Welcome back to Queerly Speaking. I'm your host, Nat Jones.
Why are you talking so fast? I'm your co-host, Tami Jones.
I'm talking this fast because when I've been editing and reviewing, you talk so much faster than me.
Oh, it's kind of jarring. No offense.
Thanks for being here today. We're going to auction off 5 cars. No, but I think I can find a little bit of a balance because sometimes when we're recording, I'm like thinking about my feelings so deeply. I'm like, and then I had a thought.
I'm a faster thinker than you. That's what you said. You heard it here, folks.
Okay, moving right along. No, you are. There's a lot more going on in your brain than I think there is.
I think that's unmedicated anxiety.
Yeah, I think so too. And it comes out fast and funny.
Anywho.
Yeah, welcome back. We're really excited to share some incredible news that we've been waiting to share for a long time. We've been waiting to have the news, and then we've been waiting to share. So today's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to ask Tami a ton of questions about her process and feelings and all of the things.
That's why I'm in the hot seat this week.
Yeah, if you notice, we switch sides. It's not the first time I've done that in my life. And just kidding. It's definitely, I don't switch back and forth. Anyway, you want to share the news?
Well, today in Phoenix, we're reaching record temperatures of 110 degrees.
And the snow is melting.
We're having a baby.
We're having a baby. We are having a baby. If you remember months ago, I don't even actually know when, months ago, we had a episode on fertility. And we're kind of explaining where we're at, what was going on, what it was like for us. It's brand new. Neither one of us have ever been through the process. And I don't think we realized like how painful it would be, how beautiful it would be, how many feelings we would have all about it. And we realized shortly after that episode that we're like, we need to stop talking about this publicly until we are more ready, till we're like further along the process. Then we can kind of explain what happened in the past.
Back,
yeah, because it's just so much.
But how could you know? I mean, right? It's like anything. Like you don't know until
you really don't. There's so many things about the process for me that were very surprising. So, I mean, I don't even know, where do we start? I think maybe we pick up where that last episode was, which is when we were just explaining that we were moving forward with IUI.
Yeah, I think that was the last episode was before our first round, right? If I'm remembering correctly.
I think so. No, I think it was right around the time we had just done the first one.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
Either way, new and fresh.
It's new and fresh. And what's interesting is that when we did the first one, we were very emotionally prepared. We had told ourselves like the first one's definitely not going to work. It is like statistically speaking, it is such a low percentage that it will work anyway, but especially not the first time. And so that one I think was the easiest for us because we went in thinking it's most likely not going to, it would be a miracle if it worked. Or not a miracle, but it would be like surprising if it worked, but we're not expecting it to work.
Well, I thought I wasn't expecting it. Turns out I was.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. Like we can kind of go through each one just in small amounts, but like, so the first one, we go through that one. You and I both had a little bit of a different reaction. So why don't you kind of explain how in the first one, we had talked a lot about how we did not expect it to work. I thought we were like on the same page. Again, though, especially honestly, men should listen to this. It's the same experience. I'm not the person carrying. And then there's like an added layer of being a queer couple as well. But, you know, I'm in this. I'm excited. I can't wait. This is like something I've wanted for a very long time. And to have it with you, like I'm over the moon. But my body is not the one being impacted with hormones and the emotions at a whole new level and everything else. So when we found out that the first cycle of IUI did not work, why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think it's just something like you don't know until you're in it. Like I felt very prepared, or we felt very prepared. We talked about, doing it 3 to 4 times before we really pivoted or whatever. It just kind of goes back to like, you don't know until you're really in the process, right? Like I couldn't really have prepared myself. I think we knew the statistics and we thought, okay, we're comfortable doing this 3 or 4 times before we move on to IVF or, some other, well, that's really the only option until we move on to IVF. But I don't know. I think there's something about a physician being involved in the process. And you spend think about sex ed, right? Everyone. It's like you spend your whole life pretty much thinking, oh my God, if I have sex one time, I'm going to be pregnant.
Yeah.
And it seems like your teenage life and your young, like when you're in your early 20s and things like that, obviously if you were sleeping with men, but you're like fighting off pregnancy at every chance you get, like you're like avoid. So,
and growing up on top of that, for another layer, you had a severe fear of getting pregnant.
Right.
Young.
Right. Yeah, I did. And anyway, so I just think like there's just something to be said when you're being monitored and a doctor's coming and you're thinking like, oh, I know a lot of people that get pregnant really easily and, they're manipulating the cycle. I don't know. I just think it seems much more realistic or much more likely to happen in that time. And then additionally, our first few cycles were, they call them unmedicated. The only medicine I was on was the trigger shot right before. But that produces HCG, which is the pregnancy hormone. So then you're also having, and that was another thing. I didn't realize how sensitive I would be to that. Literally slept the whole next day. I was just so exhausted. And I felt like I really felt those symptoms pretty severely. Mm-hmm. And that's confusing, right? Because then you're like, for example, sense of smell is like one that,
like an indicator that you're pregnant.
Yeah, increased sense of smell. And I have a fucking terrible sense of smell. I think it's my allergies, literally. I think I sneezed them away. Like, I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
And so I was really weird. Like, I remember we were in Tucson visiting one of my sisters. And, like, my brother-in-law was making us lunch or something. And she's like, oh, I wonder if we started yet. I'm like, yeah, you can smell it. And she's like, no. And I was like, oh, my God. And it's just, like, those little things. I think you kind of let your brain, take over and you're like, okay, like this is a sign. But then you're sort of forgetting that you're also on medication that's giving you those same symptoms. So I think that and just the pure like excitement of the situation, I really kind of let my mind take over.
I also think too, like you've shared with me many times, it's like, and I think we both feel this way, you on a whole different level, right? But you want a family. Like we knew we wanted a baby. We knew we wanted to have kids together. But going into the process, like the actual process of it, I did see things really change for you. And it was very apparent, like you went from, and this is the way I would describe it. So I'm interested to see how you would describe it as well. But it's like, hey, if your dream is like right here, right? And it's like kind of off in the distance a little bit. You're just like, okay, I know I want that, but I have no idea what that's like. You know what I mean? You're not as connected to it. But when we started the process, you went from like really far out, or in your mind, it seemed like this idea and this dream was really far out, and you weren't really scared of disappointment. You weren't really experiencing any of that. Yeah. And then as soon as we went into the process, it's like all of a sudden I could tell like how much you wanted this like baby.
Yeah.
Like it changed overnight.
Yeah, I agree completely. And we also talked about, and I think it's good to have these conversations and, good to listen to other people's stories. When you see other people going through it, like it's easier to be like, oh, you've only tried a couple times. Or like, oh, and they do tell you, right? Like it's normal to take a year. Obviously, since they were medicating us, they would have pivoted a little bit sooner, but they would tell, heterosexual couples, they don't even treat you for fertility before a year. Like you have to go through 12 cycles of this before the doctor is even going to look at what can be wrong. Like, I can't.
For heterosexual people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I said. So, and you're always wanting to be supportive, right? It's of the best intentions that you're saying, oh, it hasn't been that long, to your friends. And you're like, I don't think none of that is of ill intent. I think that's all just people trying to support people and, let them know, like, try to relieve the pressure that they put on themselves and things like that. But I felt like when you're in it and once we did that first cycle and it failed, it's like, oh my God, I really feel for those people. Like I can understand how as soon as you feel like you're trying and you're on, you're taking the steps to make it happen, then you get your period. It's like a fucking punch in the gut. Mm-hmm. First of all, you probably don't feel good. Like I don't have great periods. So then I'm like depressed now. And I also feel terrible. And it's just like, it's just like a big letdown, which is crazy, the effects it has on you mentally. Like I can't even possibly imagine. Of course, I empathize with them, but I can't even imagine like women who deal with this for a long time, because it just feels like I felt like, really, I have like one job. Like this is like my one thing I'm doing here. Like what the fuck is going on? Like,
Yeah, you were putting a lot of pressure on yourself.
which in hindsight, you're like, that's a lot to be feeling after one failed cycle, but you just kind of can't help it. I think it's like financially you're invested, mentally you're invested, emotionally you're invested. Again, like the best way I can describe it is like you feel like, oh, there's a medical team involved now. Like there's this one thing that's happening, seems to be happening for people like willy-nilly that I've been like fighting off my whole life. Now we have a medical team that's trying to give it to me and it's not working.
I feel like the number, I don't know. That's dramatic. I don't know if it's the number one thing, but I think something I've taken from this journey is that you truly, there are just some things, no matter how much of an empathetic person you are, that you cannot understand until you're in the process yourself. Kind of back to what you were saying before. It's like there were even friends in our lives, heterosexual friends, and they've been trying for a couple of months. And the woman was like very, very upset. And I remember thinking like, it's only been a couple of months, like just relax a little bit. And it wasn't out of like a lack of empathy. It was like, you're going to be fine. Like everything's going to be fine. Just relax. And then when we started going through this, now I do have to say as well that there's, for queer couples, especially for people who struggle with fertility in general, there is this whole other added layer of this financial cost that also makes it really different. But I'll first just start by saying that it really opened my eyes that like there are just some things you truly cannot understand, and you can try. But I think when I've tried to apply this to other areas of my life. Like when someone's telling me something and I'm like, oh, I get that. I understand that. But it's like, maybe I do, maybe I don't. But I think it is really helpful and healthy to have this awareness of like, I don't know what that's like, but if you need me, I'm here. Because I want to love you and I want to care for you and I want to be here for you. But maybe you tell me what you need from me. Yeah. Because I may not know. Yeah. I may not know what's best.
I agree completely.
Yeah. So we had the first cycle. It didn't work. And you were, like you shared a little bit already, just feeling under so much pressure. I remember just different days where you would break down crying and saying, it's like, this is what I'm like bringing to the table. And I'm like, honey, that's literally not all that you're bringing to the table, but I get what you're saying. The reason is for us specifically, I'm older. I just turned 37 and you're 31. And I've had a lot of hormonal issues. So I'm perimenopausal, have been since I was 31, 32. I've been on hormone replacements to help just balance me out. And at first, the doctor, my naturopath, really felt like I would get on the hormones, which are like natural hormones, and then it would kind of like my body would restart. Just never did. So it's taken me several years to really balance out my hormones. And I had a conversation with my doctor because we really would have probably done IVF and went the IVF, like reciprocal IVF, which is where I would harvest my eggs and then she would carry one of her eggs and then one of my eggs, and we would use the same donor. That would have been like top in the beginning. That would have been top number one dream. And my doctor felt strongly that my eggs like wouldn't be viable. And then also there were fears of like, hormones really fuck with you. Yeah. And we had spent not only a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of emotional energy to working on getting my hormones right with my doctor. We just kind of came to the conclusion together that it was more important for me to be here and be healthy and be strong than to take that risk, not knowing exactly how it would impact my hormones. And if I would then go through all of the process, which can be pretty heavy with friends doing it right now, it can be really hard on your body, and then my eggs not be viable. So because of that, I think that you felt a lot of pressure because you were the only one in our relationship who could then give it to us. And I could see that really early. I think I started out very much more level emotionally in the beginning, just saying to you, like, we knew it was going to take one or two times. Like, we know your family is very fertile.
Most of them.
Yes, most of them. And yeah, if you do have a family member who really struggled with fertility, can really understand and relate to us in a way that others can't.
Yeah.
We appreciate her very much. And it was really important to me that you just enjoyed the process as much as possible and you didn't feel pressure and you weren't stressed. And then I started to realize there's just no way around it. Like I can't make you not be stressed. I can't make you not feel what you're going to feel. I just have to do the best by just being here for you. And there's also an element that I can relate to hormonal issues and things, but I've never been through this process.
Right.
And so I, would start asking like, what do you need from me? I don't know. For the first time, I think in our relationship, I didn't know. And that's been kind of a weird.
Yeah. We're a bit still on that journey.
Yeah. We're now I'm getting more used to it, but it is different. Yeah. It's really, really different.
No, I mean, you did a great job always. And I do want to spend a little more time on that later when we talk about what you're, how you're supporting me now. But
later, it's boring.
No, it's not. But I think the kind of benefit, well, I guess it was a plus or minus, was you don't really have that long. Like your first IUI appointment, or at least in our situation, your first IUI appointment is cycle day 3. So even though we were getting negative tests, I was like, well, I haven't got my period yet. So, you never know. But it's like, yeah, obviously, because you're on medication to make your period not come. But whatever, Like I was being delulu. And so then you get your period and then it's like, 2 days later, you're going back to the doctor and you're starting the whole thing again. So you don't really have kind of a lot of time to sit with it, but that's also nice because I think you're like, okay, just back on the saddle. Like, let's do it again. And
we had previously talked about that. That's kind of how we wanted to handle it. That we just like go back to back.
Yeah.
And the doctor said that you should do that because it can help your body.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what it does, but
yeah. So then second time comes around and the doctor's really optimistic. He's like, I see most of my successes on the second round. We're like, okay, great. Then I
also felt really strongly that it was going to work on the second one.
You did.
I set myself up with that.
Which is interesting because I feel like that's when we had a swap, a total flip.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's, no, I'm sure it is probably like self-preservation. Like I just didn't want to let myself get, excited again. I really never felt that cycle like it was working. Like I really never felt like, I mean, obviously I was being hopeful because I think, it's important what you put out, but I didn't really feel, like it was happening, but you really did. Like you were really, really optimistic.
I did,
Yet, spoiler alert, that didn't work either. So
that one was hard.
Yeah.
That one was hard because I think I specifically went into this thinking like, some of the members in your family are like beyond fertile, and I just probably assumed it'd be the same. And you're healthy. You're like, but I don't know. It's just like you do weird things in your mind. That's my biggest advice to anybody going through this is like, just try your best not to make up stories in your mind.
Yeah.
Because
emotional gymnastics.
Yeah, it really is. But then also, I think for me specifically as the non-caring parent, I felt really guilty, like feeling anything myself because I just felt like it was like my job to be there for you. And it was like, well, what do you need? And because I didn't want you to see me be sad and then you be more sad.
Right.
So we had to really talk through
that journey as well, each of us. It's hard to balance. Like, I think it's hard to navigate and to know what to do.
Yeah.
And I think we felt extra pressure that time because there's, I know we kind of did a full episode on this already, but choosing the donor is like a fucking wild roller coaster ride. And there's not as many options with our desired features as we thought. So then we find one.
You notice my dark hair and light eyes.
So we find one that we like, and they go fast. So he only had 2 vials, but it was like, oh, he's coming back. So we're like, okay, we'll just buy all he has. Then again, thinking, I think kind of blissfully, like, oh, it'll definitely work then, and then we'll have time to get the next one. So then we burn through 2. Then it's like, what? He's not coming back, right? Then we find out like he's not coming back. We're like, fucking great. And so that was that's like loss number 2, right? Like loss number 1 is like, oh shit, we're not pregnant.
That's true.
Loss number 2 is like we felt connected to a donor. He's not available anymore, and also he's not coming back. And which again, like hindsight's 2020, like probably a blessing that didn't work because we would have, that could have been problematic that he wasn't coming back with future children if we, if that was priority to us. But you're not feeling that at the time.
Future vials,
right? Yeah, you're feeling like, well, that's another blow. Like, great, here we go.
Yeah,
and
you didn't want to do it. The third one.
Yeah, I didn't want to.
I think that's when emotionally you were like, no.
I knew that I at least needed a break.
Yeah, and it was interesting too. So like just for full transparency for those of you who are looking to do this journey in the future. So it's really expensive each time you do it. It's $2,000 for a vial of sperm, depending on where you get it from. And we also wanted a family slot, so we paid a little bit extra, which just means there's a limited number of families that this donor can donate to. That was important to us. So $2,000 for that, $1,000 for the procedure, and then just various costs for medications and things like that. And so we probably spent about $3,500 each time we did this, which is, I'm not saying that's like a crazy amount of money, but when you've done it once, then you do it again, then you do it a third time, now you're at close to $10,000. And so when we were,
it adds up.
It adds up so
just bought
fast.
a house, like there's a lot going on,
Yeah, and we want to have money when they're born. So I think that was a portion of it too. It's like, I think that was a portion of the pressure that you felt as well.
It was.
Because each time it didn't work, it's like, well, there goes another however many $1,000. And so by the third time, we knew that we would be close to about 10 grand. And IVF, probably more than, but IVF is what, 14 at our clinic?
Yeah, I think it's like 15 kind of base.
15 base, so like 15 to 20, depending on what medication you need. And so we were scared. We're like, okay, my God, like, do we pay for another cycle of IUI and then we're going to hit 10 grand? Or do we just stop and then wait till the end of the year and try to start again and then do IVF, which, because I mean, either way you're looking at, you're like, it's costly. It's costly each time. And we just wanted to make the best decision. And we in full transparency, came to the relationship with debt that we're continuing to work on. And so we, didn't want to, and we're not at a place where we could go into debt for fertility. We actually, there's all of these types of like loans and all of this. Just wait for this. It's so interesting. So this loan company, they're like, oh, we help families. Everybody that works here at this loan place has had some sort of fertility journey. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, with interest rates close to like 25% right now on credit cards on average, and personal loans between 12 and 15, I'm like, this would be great. Like maybe it's like a thing that actually helps, right? We go through the process and they call us. They're like, you're fully approved. And I'm like, awesome. Here's your monthly payment. And I'm like, cool. What is the interest? And they're like, well, our base interest starts at 20%. I was like, so you
I almost fucking fell on the ground.
Call yourself a fertility clinic and you market yourself. But don't get me started. I mean, I am started on this because it's like on one edge of it, on like one far extreme, you're like, if that's your only option, it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna judge you. You do whatever you want to do to have the money to pay for the process and have a baby. Like that, I would never judge someone for making that decision. But I'm like, also, what a fucking scam.
But you're kind of preying on people who are in that position and will do anything.
Yeah.
I could see how you would get there. And I think there are other loans, I'm sure, and a lot of people, do that with fertility or use, credit cards so they get their points and all that stuff, which I think is great.
Or just to use credit cards, they don't have like as many resources.
Right. I think for us, just going off of like what you were talking about, we just kind of made a commitment like a few years ago. It's like every new big step that we take, like we want to be prepared for, and that's not something that we're willing to go into debt for because of kind of our past situation. So at that, and we're lucky to have good jobs. And also that is something, right? Like it is a blessing. Like we were lucky to be in a position where we could take a few months hiatus and have the liquid cash to pay. But that's not the case for everyone. Like if we didn't know that was coming, we probably would have been suckered into, maybe not the 20%, but I mean, so there's definitely privilege for that, but it is a big financial commitment. And I think I felt just like, again, being protective of our finances and all that stuff. Like, do we want to take a risk on the third time? And now by the time the third time, would have been completed, it's like, well, that's the cost of an IVF cycle. So we could have X amount of embryos, God willing, or we could have 3 failed. Like I was in protection mode. So I was being negative. I was definitely in a period of negativity. So we were kind of at odds is not the right thing to say because we were figuring it out, but we were on different sides. So you felt strongly like, let's take one more chance. And I felt strongly no. So the agreement was, let's take a break. We called it spring break. We're like, let's take
spring break.
The month of March. We're like, let's take it off. I'm like, your sister was visiting. Like we had a couple fun things going on. I'm like,
let's distract ourselves. Let's hang out with each other.
Yeah. Like just kind of decompress. see how we feel, look at it, you know, and then we can come back. And I took full advantage of spring break, let me tell you.
Yes, she did. With those drinks. But we would, I think of it fondly because we always walk in the spring and winter, fall. Besides June, right July, now, August, and September, it's like beautiful. And we'll always, on days we don't go to the gym together, we'll take long walks in the morning with our dog. And for both of us, our love languages are quality time. So I think we would have those walks and we would just talk. We would just talk through it. Like, yeah, I'm scared of this. I don't know about that. And it was an interesting process for me because I'm very quick to like think through and decide. And it's like, done, moving forward, done, moving forward. And and you're not like that.
No.
At all.
Not even close.
And this was a really hard thing. Yeah. So anyway, I think we learned a lot about each other. We learned how to just like stay in a place of like, I don't know what the answer is. And we did all month.
Yeah.
All of spring break, which is all of March.
All of spring break. I had a great time. And there's also, I think this is kind of important to talk about as well. I'm 31. You're 37. And the timeline of that, it's like you kind of move in seasons. And I'm lucky to have most of my friends I've had since I was, really young, or they're my college friends. Obviously, I have friends from other chapters of my life. And the point of me saying that is that most of my close friends are my same age or around my same age. And so you kind of have, you go through your life sort of in batches, right? Like most of us got engaged around the same time. I got married at the same time. Thank God we were on the lesbian timeline. So that expedited me to catch up with everyone, but I made it onto the boat. So now it's kind of baby season. Some of my friends are already mothers and fathers. Some of my friends are wanting to. Some of my friends are deciding that they don't want to. There's a lot going on, right? It's kind of a hot topic. And so you're seeing that happen around you, which that's, an added pressure. And you're like, of course, you want to have this experience with your friends. Like, obviously the most important experience of this, I want to be clear, is ours together. But I think there is some community around, being able to talk to other people about your pregnancy or being able to talk to other people about how you're supporting me. And, because both of us are having a different experience in this shared experience, right? And both of those need support. So I think that plays on it emotionally because you're seeing like it's happening for other people and it's not happening for you, or vice versa. Like you might be on the other end, of the situation and you're, it's happening for you, but it's not happening for other people. And then it's just a lot of balancing of emotions going on top of the financial commitment, on top of the pressure that you already feel, on top of the hormones, on top of, it's just compounding. It was just a lot going on.
It was. And, there were friends that you wanted to be in, alongside of them in the process and all of that. And then on my end, I'm like, who do I talk to about this? I don't feel like a lot of my guy friends could understand exactly what it's like to go through this process, but be the non-carrying woman, because it is different being a woman. Yeah. It is different being a woman. There's no way around it. It feels different, especially when I maybe had wanted something, like I wanted reciprocal IVF, couldn't have that for health purposes or reasons. And then it's just complicated. Yeah. It is. And I have some great friends in my life, some queer friends I was able to kind of talk through. And then a newer friend as well that actually reached out, and her wife had just recently had a baby, and she's like, do you need to talk about, I must have got chills, but like, do you want to talk about like the fertility journey from an aspect of a non-caring parent, which is unique. I get that. It's a very unique small number of people, but I'm like, yeah, because not everybody can understand exactly what this is like. And it's very interesting because we're surrounded by a lot of straight friends when we've been going through this process. All of the girls from your high school friends, your college friends, who now I'm really good friends with and good friends with their husbands as well. This is no fault of anyone, but most people in our lives would ask how you were. They would ask how you were feeling, how you were. Am I taking care of you? Am I doing enough for you? Am I doing and all of those things? It's actually a lot of the things that we say to men. It's all of the things we say to men. And there are a lot of men that maybe you should say that. I like to think that most of the men in our life, we don't need to say that because we know what they are already, if not doing more. And so I feel like that's kind of like an old school way of thinking. If you're in that situation with your husband, I'm very sorry. You probably find a different husband.
Jesus, babe.
I mean it. So yeah, it's been unique. It's been, for me specifically, it's been lonely.
Yeah.
Where I think you've experienced the exact opposite of being like having people who are either pregnant around you or wanting to be pregnant around you or just experiencing like different things. And then you're figuring out how much do you want to tell people. And we're just having very different experiences.
Yeah, we are. I think now that we are pregnant, well, no, I want to be clear. I've always had great support. I'm incredibly lucky. I mean, I feel like this comes up every episode and maybe I'll cry. You know, these days I cry at everything, but I am incredibly lucky by my friends and the people in our corner. I mean, they're like the most supportive, amazing fucking people you'd ever meet in your life.
Amazing community.
And it's like I got all the world's best people and they're all my friends. It's actually crazy. And my sisters have been really great. I mean, actually, my parents both have been really supportive, which is like, that's, you know, impressive as well. So I have been shocked by the amount of great support, especially now. But I do feel like during the times where we had our failed cycles or we were just preparing or we were on spring break or all that stuff, yeah, I actually find a ton of my comfort on TikTok. Because it is, and we talked about this, but again, you're right, we are coming at it from different perspectives, but I feel like fertility in the queer space can be kind of isolating because you're, you know, and maybe sometimes I try to be too aware of people's feelings. I don't know, but it's like, we're not experiencing infertility. Like I'm not experiencing infertility because I've had 2 failed cycles.
No.
So
no,
I obviously don't want to try to put myself in a space where, you know, with women who are experiencing that's a level I can't, you know, based on how much the 2 cycles affected me, I literally can't even imagine dealing with that.
That's a really good distinguishing like factor. Yeah. I'm glad you brought this up.
Yeah, thank you. So actually one of my sisters struggled with infertility for many years. Luckily her and my brother-in-law now have the absolutely most amazing daughter and we're all like really, really close. It was nice to have her as a resource during this time just because I think she could share from her perspective, you know, what it was like to see it happening for her friends and it not happening for her, or, you know, just the pressures that they felt, or, you know, not wanting to get your hopes up, or all of that. It was just kind of nice to have that. But
and I think too, she had a perspective of like what it was like for her husband also.
Yes.
Like going through it and understanding his emotions, which gave her the ability to like relate to me a little bit more. Yeah. It's like my sister, your oldest sister were the ones who would reach out and just be like, so how are you feeling? Like, how are you doing? Do you need to talk to someone? Do you need to process? Because I'm definitely not telling you how sad I am.
Right.
You know, I mean, I am, but like not but like you have enough to carry, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. But even then I felt like, and she would never even like let me feel this way. She's like such a nice person. But like, I even also feel like, well, that's not really my space. Like, I mean, it took them years, you know, she has endometriosis. She's, you know, really fought through that and all of that stuff. So you're like, I don't know. It's just kind of a conflicting space to be in because I don't want to it was grief, right? That's the reality. I was having grief of what I thought was going to happen on the timeline I thought it was going to happen on. So I was grieving that, but I didn't want to put my grief in a bucket where I felt like it didn't belong. But then it also is different because I don't feel like my grief, or I didn't feel at the time like my grief belonged with other people who were not having medical intervention, like, you know, heterosexual couples, because I felt like, well, there's a financial burden and I am on medication and I am being monitored. And so it felt.
And all the appointments and you know, it is different.
It felt like it was different from them. And that, I mean, and everyone's grief is on an equal playing field, right? In this scenario, none of us.
Yeah, it's not better or worse or anything. It's just different.
Yeah, you just don't quite know where you're going to go. And I think people feel like that because I think even some, you know, of our friends who were going through that we would talk to, I mean, they would always say, well, it's totally different because you guys are having doctors and stuff. And then I'm saying to them like, well, your period coming is your period coming. Like that's a big fat fucking bummer for both of us, no matter how. If you're trying to get pregnant, here, you know. And I never felt isolated by people who have. Yeah, exactly.
If you're not, you're like.
If you don't want your, you know, and I never felt isolated by people who had dealt with infertility either. I think they, you know, were always supportive and stuff, but you just kind of don't know. That's the only time where I feel like I could relate to you in any way, where you're kind of like, where do I put my feelings? Like I just felt like, where do I put this? Like, you know, where does this belong?
Yeah. I think that's so insightful. I didn't want to put my grief in the wrong bucket.
Yeah.
And it really is the wrong bucket, but I get what you're saying, where it's like
and both buckets were open to me. I mean, they presented themselves to me with support.
Totally. But it's like, but I get what you're saying. It's like, we'll use Lisa for an example, your oldest sister. If it took her 7 years to get pregnant, again, that kind of goes back to what we talked about when we were beginning this very episode of saying, you really can't comprehend. Really, you can think that you know, but you don't. There's just no way around it.
And I actually don't know. I can't really remember how long it took her to get pregnant, but it was a long time.
Maybe I'm mixing it with my sister. So my oldest sister was 7 years.
Yeah. I'm not sure because
I'm pretty sure it's very similar.
She's well, I can't say she's older than me. She listens to the podcast and she's going to be like, you always bring that up. But I mean, I was young when she had my niece, so I don't really.
I'm pretty sure it was around 7
My
years.
perception of time is different, but I know it was a long time.
Yeah. And so I just say that to say it's like you just can't know.
Yeah, you can't.
You know? And so like the best that we can do for everyone, the best that we can do for ourselves and for others is just, again, back to what I said in the very beginning of like, tell me what you need because I love you. Let that be the clearest message today that you hear, but show me what you need, or not show me what you need, but tell me what you need. Tell me how to love you.
Yeah.
You'll know. Like, I think I knew if someone had asked me that, like I would have known, or maybe I wouldn't have. I don't really know. It's like, when I figure it out, I'll let you know, but just sit here and love me until I'm ready to tell you. I don't know.
And sometimes you say that you're like, I don't really know, but it's just nice to know that you have people in your corner and, people that are rooting for you, and we want to be that for other people as well. And I think there's so much power in the energy that you put out that people around you do. Mm-hmm. That's also something, right? Like and obviously we're talking about it more in depth on the podcast now that we're kind of
on the other
metaphorically on the other side. There was a level too where it's like, do we want to tell anyone? Mostly for me, I am literally such an external processor. Like, I want to talk about every thought I've ever had in my entire life with pretty much everyone I come in contact with every day. And so I knew like, there's no way I'm going to be able to move in silence for however long this takes. And honestly, I am so glad that we did because, then we were able to have.
But the fear on the other side of that was if we do tell people, they're going to be asking us all the time too. And it's like, maybe we don't want that.
Right.
Maybe we don't want that. And that can be scary too. Cause like maybe you're not at a place where you can talk about it. I'm the exact opposite of you. I'm an internal processor for sure. And so I was a little bit like.
You did want to talk to people. You did kind of open up.
I did eventually, but especially in the beginning, I was like, we should not tell anyone. We should keep it to ourselves.
Yeah. But then you get excited, right? And you're like, every appointment, like it's looking good. So you want to share the excitement with people. And I think you do pick, like I really leaned on my two sisters a lot during this process, but I felt like my sisters knew they pretty much only waited for us to come to them with information. Like they were, now they are like asking how we are and stuff like that. But during that process, and same thing with your sister, like occasionally I think everyone would be like, how are you guys doing? But they weren't like asking for regular updates. Like they kind of understood.
They did really good.
We, you'll come to us when you need us, but we're always here, which is really nice. And I think our friends that we told were in the same. Yeah. We're in the same boat,
Yeah. Well, I think you did a good job of expressing that in the beginning too.
Yeah.
I think naturally my sister kind of knows me enough to know, like she would ask like, how are you? But it's very clear if I want to talk about something or not.
Right.
But I think you did a good job, like, because all of your sisters are external processors. Like you guys talk about everything.
Ann and I are like every second of the day.
Ann and I are different than that. And so I think you did a good job, like setting that up, and they did such a good job listening and respecting and just being there for you. Like, shout out to both of you guys. You did an amazing job. Yeah. She talked about it the whole time, how great it was to have you both.
Yeah. And I think our friends too also did a great job. There was and it was more like it came up. Like it wasn't like I felt like it was an announcement, like we're starting fertility to like all of our friends. Sometimes it's situational, right? Like I made the choice. I really didn't drink the whole time we were doing that. Just because I was like, whatever, I just want to I kind of wanted to, weaning off drinking makes it sound like I had a drinking problem before, but I did kind of want to I don't know. I was like, it's already good to not get in the habit. Hopefully soon I won't be drinking, for a long time. And I didn't want to mess with the medication. They say your inflammation, whatever, all that stuff. So it's like, that is kind of an elephant in the room, right? Like we're going to parties and I'm like not drinking. So then it would come up and we talk about it, but it was kind of situational at that point, whether it was, but all of that's to say, I felt like our friends also really understood, where they would kind of wait to see like if we wanted to talk about it, like then they would be there for us, but not in an overbearing way.
Yeah. I agree. We have great friends. Yeah. Great family.
Yeah, I think it was nice. I think we did have, I just want to show appreciation for the support. Support that we had going through that, because it was really turned out to be much more of a doozy than I'd anticipated.
Yeah, it was a bit of a doozy.
It was a Mr. Toad's wild fucking ride.
Yeah. And we have a lot more to share. We scratched the surface today.
I know.
We have a lot more to share.
We haven't even got to the exciting part.
Well, yeah, I know. And I have a lot to say about it.
I'm sure you do.
Thanks for listening this week. We will catch up next time we're on this together and share more of the journey. Hope you enjoyed this. And yeah, have a good week.
Thanks for listening.